Hey peeps, welcome to the dark and mysterious Moody Autumn deck list. So if you are more in a vampiric, foggy mornings, dark, moody, and mysterious night autumn mood, this is going to be the list to inspire you to write that fantastical tale of werewolves and vampires in the deep, dark wood. Okay, so I'm going to start with an honorable mention here. I do have this particular deck with me. And I should say, if you're in more of a warm, cozy autumn mood, I do have a deck list for that. That video posted this week, I will put the link in the description box down below. But I do have an honorable mention today. I am choosing for it to be honorable mention because it is out of print, and I know a lot of people really want the Lippy Tarot who were not able to get it, and there's a lot of feelings of missing out for those who don't have it. But the Lippy Tarot is one of my favorite moody, mysterious decks. It's wonderful for this time of year. It tells some very dark and brooding, vampiric, Louisiana, New Orleans bayou magic. It's a gorgeous deck. It's one of a kind. It's very unique, but it is out of print. And so for those of you who are not able to purchase this deck at this point in time, I don't want you to feel bad, but this is, if you do have this in your collection, it's a great time of year to pull this deck out. And I would encourage doing some shadow work spreads with it, or some story writing around vampires and that kind of moody swamp vibe. So we're going to move into the official deck list now. Just as with the warm and cozy list, I don't have a specific order for these. We're kind of just going through, but there are a few, of course, that are always at the top of my list. And so, you know, I'm sure you guys are going to know when I come across those, but I will be sure to let you all know. So the first deck on the list is the Divine Circus Oracle. This is the first edition box and deck that I have here. If you purchase the deck now, it's going to look slightly different. I do not like the circus and clown imagery in this deck, as you guys know, but images like this, I love. And this is a great deck for that kind of moody, morose, kind of sitting and reflecting, kind of a little bit maudlin. This is the deck for you if you're in that mode. Or if you want to have a deck that encourages you but also tells you the truth and gives you clarity around where you might be stuck in your situation or life, then I would really encourage you to work with the Divine Circus Oracle by Alana Fairchild. There are multiple artists that were included in this deck. It's a really special one, and I do prefer the original packaging. Excuse me. Even though I know some people prefer the newer edition, I like the original first edition of the Divine Circus Oracle. And I do want to apologize. My son and I had a stomach virus this week, and we're also now seeming to be dealing with a cold. So it's the beginning of the school year. We're feeling it. So I am a little bit off today with that, but yeah, we're getting there. It's the beginning of the school year, the joyous times. Next on the list is the Dark Wood Tarot. I love this tarot deck, and I just so completely associate it with autumn, with the goddess Hecate, with the goddess Persephone, and with the woods. As well as, I think if you are wanting to connect with the white stag, Cernunnos, the old devil, the old one, this is a great deck for that. It's very, very autumn vibes, and it's very spooky and mysterious and moody. It's not really warm and cozy to me, even though the tonality is a little bit warmer. For me, it feels much more mysterious and dark and foreboding, but also dreamy and romantic. So if you're looking for those like Edgar Allan Poe story vibes, but not an Edgar Allan Poe deck, I think the Darkwood Tarot is a wonderful option. It's definitely, if I were to have a numbered deck list for this, it would be high up on the deck list. Next is Todd Alcott's Horror Tarot. If you're a horror girly or dude like I am, You cannot go wrong with this deck, and it's absolutely on the moody, the horror vibes aspect of autumn. So if you want a deck that is beautifully kitschy, slasher, zombie, infectious disease, horror type of deck, then this is the one that you want. It's a great deck. And if you want something that's also very Halloween vibes in its nature too, this is a great one to evoke, you know, end of October, Halloween sew-in, but it has that gorgeous, kitschy, old school horror style feel to it. And I really love it. You'll recognize a lot of the imagery from certain specific popular Hollywood horror movies. But it's so much fun, and it is not warm and cozy. It is absolutely tongue-in-cheek, but beautifully horror, delicious, dark autumn vibes. So this is Todd Alcott's The Horror Tarot. And I think while he does have it for sale on his Etsy shop, you may be able to get it on Amazon as well, but it's a really great one. If you're an autumn person, as I said, you're really going to enjoy working with that one. The next deck on the list I've actually been using a lot in client readings, and it's been super powerful over the last 2 weeks. So this is Mausolea Oracle of Souls. When I first purchased it, I liked it, and I believe I have an unboxing on the channel, but it kind of didn't get a lot of use throughout most of 2024. However, like I said, there's been some really impactful readings that this deck has shown up for. And I realized, looking at the artwork in those readings, like, oh my God, this deck has to go on the Moody Autumnal deck list, because it is that kind of dark color theme. You know, they hold archetypes and myths and deity energy. Each individual card has a specific entity attached with it. So you also get that kind of feeling of being in, I don't know, a dark vampire court, you know? It's a really good deck. Like, it's really good. And I don't know why I haven't used it more. And I'm excited to work with it more, especially moving, like, I think late October into November, where we're kind of in that liminal space between fall and winter. I think this is going to be one I'm going to use a lot personally. But this is Mausolea Oracle of Souls. It's illustrated by Jason Engel, and it's a really great deck. Okay, let's see. Let me move some things around here. So next on the list is the Slavic Legends Tarot. This was gifted to me, and I've talked about it on the channel. I really feel connected to it, much more so than another deck that's on this list, the Wildwood Tarot. I really love this deck, and I think this has all of the dark, mysterious forest vibes. It has that old myth and storyline, and it's really beautiful. Really gorgeous. Has a lot of like passion, and the blood is present here. And as we know, the blood is the life. So, you know, it's a really great deck. I really enjoy working with this one. It's a solid reader when it comes to client work. And personally, I find it to be, in a way, like it straddles the experience of a straight up Rider-Waite-Smith, like straight to the point, but not a lot of connection, with a deck that's more like, let's say, Marielle, which is much more about like getting to know it, the chop wood, carry water aspect, and really connecting to the deck intimately, but you have to put that work in. This deck kind of straddles both sides of that very well. So you do have a deck that reads straight up, sweet to the point, like a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but you also feel this wealth of meat on the bone, if you will, underneath the surface. So this is the Slavic Legends Tarot, and I really enjoy that. Okay, let's see. Next on the list, of course, you guys knew that I was going to put this in, the Memento Mori Oracle. This is one of my ride or die favorite decks of all time. It's one of my absolute favorite backings of all time. And I love this deck. This is everything that I love about stones, bones, goth, goth styling, gothic literature, Victorian and Edwardian time period. It's like the goth version of Room with a View by Merchant Ivory, you know? Like, I don't know, I love this deck. I love this deck. And I've really developed a gorgeous personal connection and relationship with it. I don't read it like a Lenormand. I read it as an oracle deck that I've connected with individual meanings for myself with. And I do, as this card suggests, really connect this deck with Hecate. I tend to use it a lot when I am wanting to communicate with her and have understandings and sharings and awarenesses with her. But if you are looking for that dark, moody, vampiric, but still based in the earth, like coming out of the dirt and bones and stones and flora and fauna, as well as kind of darker themed spirit animal energy, this is a really, really great deck for that. I highly, highly recommend the Memento Mori. There are a lot of expansion packs that Claire Goodchild has put out available through the years as well. And so that's really enjoyable to be able to use with this deck. This would be at the top of the list if I was doing a numbered list this year for sure. Okay, I have 2 Syrian Shadow decks on this list. Obvi. I love Syrian Shadows decks. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. So but this one that we're talking about right now is the Earth and Bone Oracle. And it's great for that, like, highwaymen, stand and deliver, like in the fog, you know, these old dirt roads that go through the forest at night with just a sliver of the moon above you and the fog and the wolves are howling in the background. This is that deck. I love this deck. This is another one of my I cannot live without this decks. It's amazing. This is the independently produced version of this deck. So if you do purchase it now, it's going to look slightly different. But I love this fucking deck. This deck is life for me. It's super, I have a really personal connection with it. And I find that while it absolutely does clarify tarot like a dream, and I've used it in many client readings to do so, it also has this depth to it where you can really work with it for personal underworld exploration and for personal growth. So it's a beautiful deck for the spiritual path aspect of your journey as well as a clarifier, you know. And if you're someone that is not able to have a bunch of different decks and you really want your decks to do multiple jobs, you want to get the most bang for your buck, if you will, this is a deck that I personally feel like you definitely get a lot of bang for your buck. That's the Earth and Bone Oracle by Syrian Shadow. Obsessed forever. Next on the list is Lucy Cavendish and Jasmine Beckett Griffith's Les Vampire Oracle. I use this deck every autumn. I have to take a sip of tea, guys, sorry. I use this deck every autumn. And it's like a best friend at this point. Even if we don't see each other for a while, we pick up right where we left off. We have our own inside jokes, and this is a deck where the guidebook is great, but as you build your own relationship with this deck, you can really go deep together. And I personally love Jasmine Beckett Griffith's artwork, so for me, this deck is just the most joy. It's the most joyous. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. You know, I did notice I had posted an first impressions of the Halloween Forever Oracle, and someone had said that they were kind of irritated that there were some images from other decks that were included in that deck. And there are some images from Les Vampire that are in Halloween Forever, but they have a very different feeling to me. So I don't mind that those images are repeated. I just wanted to say that because I had noticed that comment and I hadn't been able to respond to it yet. This deck is very unique. It's probably maybe my favorite Jasmine Beckett Griffith deck. Don't quote me on that though. Maybe I'll do a compare and contrast of Jasmine's decks that I have in my collection still. Do you guys want to see that? Let me know. Let me know down below if you want to see me do that. But this one is one that I cannot live without. Like if I had to get rid of Shadows and Light or this one, I would get rid of Shadows and Light and I would keep Les Vampire because it's really, really beautiful. And not only is it really beautiful, its heart and soul, again, its heart and soul is very gorgeous and vampiric in nature, of course. So if you're in that kind of moody, gothy, vampy vibes for this autumn, it's going to give you that 100%. But it also has a lot of depth to it for sure. Okay. if you're in more of the Ophelia vibe this autumn, and if you're feeling more Shakespearean and damsel in distress and J.W. Waterhouse vibes, then you're going to want the Queen Mab Oracle. This is a wonderful, mysterious, and moody autumn deck for me, but it's also more on the romanticized damsel in distress vibe energy as far as its imagery than let's say Les Vampire Oracle. So if you're looking for that type of a feeling and experience, this is a great deck for that. This is actually rapidly becoming one of my favorite decks in my collection. I'm using it personally every day right now. And it has a nice balance of these kind of warmer autumnal tone imagery with these really beautiful, dark, gorgeous, vampy vibes. So it gives you a little bit of both those worlds. And this is a deck. Listen, I'm sure you can use this as a clarifier. I like to use this as a really in-depth, personal journey oracle deck. That's what this deck is for me. And it's, yeah, that's what it's going to be. That's how it's going to stay. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I really love this deck for personal growth, personal reflection, understanding of myself, and communication with my guides. Look at that image. Do we get more vampy autumnal vibes than that? It's a really, really special deck. I love this deck. I love, love, love this deck. So Queen Mab Oracle, beauteous. Okay, I have so many decks still. You guys know what side of autumn I fall on, and it is the dark and witchy vibes of autumn. Okay, so next, this is a very controversial deck, I know. I actually have a new series coming to the channel, and I'm going to be talking about this deck, so stay on the lookout for that. But this is the Horror Tarot. And I gotta say, if you're in those witchy, vampy, werewolf vibes, and you don't mind a deck that was kind of phoned in, then you will enjoy this deck. And it definitely gives you that like old school gothic literature vampire vibes. Like think Bram Stoker's Dracula, think Frankenstein, the novels, not necessarily the movies. Then you'll enjoy, you may enjoy working with this deck. I know some people are not going to be happy I put this deck on the list, but I gotta say I do use it, and it's a good deck to read with. Like it's, again, I have a new series coming to the channel. That video should be posting next week, so keep your eye out. We'll break it down then. But this deck is on the list for dark, witchy, gloomy, moody, vampy, autumnal vibes. Okay. And I have to say, guys, you know, I'm like really living out in the middle of nowhere right now, and I freaking love it. But now that it's getting darker earlier, I did actually get a little creeped out here. I was like, oh, I haven't felt creeped out at night in a long time. I was a little creeped out last night. I was like, okay, we have the horror movie vibes, scary, you know, rural New England feel happening for real. Okay, so next on the list is the Haunted House Tarot. Look at how this poor box. I have a beloved sister in the cards who I love dearly. And this deck is like, it's intrinsic with her for me. So I can't work with this deck without thinking of her. So if you're watching this, my love, I am thinking of you right now. This deck is damsel in distress, gothic romance meets traditional Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. So if you're new to reading tarot, this deck is awesome to work with to give you that autumnal vampiric vibe, but not confuse you with the imagery. Okay, so it's not gonna be confusing. It's very easy to discern the traditional meanings for sure, but it also has that really great gothic romance vibe to it. And it's again, very, very, very easy to read with. Very, very easy to read with. It's definitely mass produced, but can I just say that also, let's give a shout out to the backings, because yeah, that is a very, very, that's right up there in my fave backings. I'm not even gonna lie. It's right up there. So that is the Tarot of Haunted House. I always call it the wrong name, but that's Tarot of Haunted House. Okay. Next on the list is the Wisdom of the Cailleach. Oh guys, I swear every time before I talk about this deck, I literally go on Google and I look up how to pronounce her name, and I cannot pronounce this goddess's name to save my life, so please forgive me. I ask the goddess herself to please forgive me. Wisdom of the Cailleach, yes. This is that deck. It's by Jane Brideson. It's currently out of print, but I think she is going to do a small run in the future. You can look her up on Instagram and message her. I should have put this in honorable mention as well, but if you are looking for crone energy autumnal vibes and you really want to be connected to forest energy in the Celtic pantheon vein, then I really strongly, highly recommend this deck. This deck is very unique. It's very special. It's absolutely gorgeous. It was gifted to me. I'm very grateful to have this deck in my collection, and I'm always happy to talk about it because it is an amazing deck. So in fact, for this one, I will put the link to her Instagram in the description box down below in case you're interested, just because I do tend to butcher that goddess's name. And I know some of you may want to inquire with Jane about purchasing it, so I want to make sure that's available to you. So next on the list is the Wildwood Tarot. I have a deep conflict with how I feel about this deck. Maybe I will add this to the new series. I kind of want to tell you the name of the series, but I want to surprise you too, because I'm feeling so creative this month and so fed by the land where I live that like I have so many creative ideas. So I think I want to surprise you guys with a title for the next series, but I know some of you guys are really going to love it. So this deck might be on there though, because yeah, I have a lot of conflict about this deck. I've gifted it and repurchased it. This is one of those decks that taught me like, stop doing that, Racine. This deck can be eerily, hauntingly accurate. It's in the same vibe as the previous deck of Celtic forest, like dark, ancient fae vibe. And it's more of that moody, woodsy wolf vibe than it is vampiric in nature. So if you're more in that end of the spooky autumn vibe, then you will want to bring this deck into your work. But I have a lot of conflicting thoughts about this deck, but I am really glad that I repurchased it. I miss the original backings that I had for my earlier edition. I don't like these backings, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. That is the Wildwood Tarot. It's a very mercurial deck that is much like how I experience the Fae, in that you never know what you're going to get. You can't rely on this deck's personality. It can be very moody and very confounding and confusing. As in, it's like the entity that you visit in the middle of the woods and you had to travel to get there. And there was considerable hardship, but you're really wondering if you should do something, so you make this pilgrimage, right? This deck is the oracle by the still water in the middle of the woods, and you go and you have the question to ask and you sit in front of the oracle for its knowledge, and maybe it gives you the most confounding riddle you've ever heard in your fucking life and you don't understand. That's this deck. But then also sometimes it's 100% spot on accurate and you're like, holy shit, I've been torturing myself with that for a month and I should have just pulled from the deck back a month ago and I would know what was going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the Wildwood Tarot. So that's on this list for that reason. Next, kind of keeping in the same theme, so the next two decks will be continued in the Celtic forest, dark and moody vibes theme, is the Witch Sister Tarot. Now, I put Journey into the Hidden Realms or Journey of the Hidden Realms, whatever the other tarot deck is by Julia Jeffries. I put that in the warm and cozy list because for me, that deck has a little bit of a softer vibe to it, a little more ethereal and ephemeral. This deck is dirty. It's dirty, fae, earth vibes. It's very, it's also a deck that's not afraid of its sexuality and its sensuality and its intensity. So for me, this deck is very like the lived part of your practice. When we witches talk about, and when we readers talk about the lived part of your practice, this is a deck that's very representative of that for me. And it's just that much grittier than Journey into the Hidden Realms that I don't think this deck could be on the warm and cozy list, because it's very, again, dirty and gritty and like dirt under your fingernails because you were digging in the dirt. where you were pulling up your bones for your next ritual. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the feel of this deck. It's really, really beautiful. It's profoundly beautiful. I have a very deep connection to it. Never would have bought it if, again, my dear tarot sister hadn't been like, oh no, you need to get this deck. Like this deck is, yeah. And she was 100% right. This deck is, yeah. But it's very much in that moody, dark, witchy, forest, Celtic, Fae vibe. So that is the Witch Sister Tarot by Julia Jeffries. The next, Julia Jeffrey. I always say Jeffries and it's not. The next deck on this list, and I think it's the final kind of Celtic Fae vibe. Yes, because now we're going into witches and vampires. This is, oh my God. This deck is really special. It is. It's just really special, guys. Just trust me, okay? Trust me. And if you're looking to connect with the Morrigan or Hecate or darker magical crone faces of the witch, as well as be deep in the forest and in that liminal space and really, really present to it, you want this deck. This deck is worth it. It's worth, I believe it's independent. I believe it's still independently produced at the time when I purchased it. And then one of my very dear sisters in the cards gifted it to me as well. It was so funny. We were like on the same wavelength. I think I talked about that on the channel. This deck is worth the investment. Like it is super unique and it really does give you that bloodthirsty goddess of the dark, liminal, at the edge of the forest vibes. Like you are aware of your lineage as a witch, as someone who's following a pagan path when you work with this deck. You're aware of the white stag, of Sir Nunos, of the Lord of the Wood, of the Lord of the Forest, whatever you would like to call him. It's very real, it's breathing, it's alive, it's a palpable energy. Like this deck is bigger than human energy. And I think you really feel that when you work with this deck. And so when I want to connect and touch the earth and feel that magic that is separate of me and yet of which I am a part, this is the deck that I choose to work with. And I'm really, this is right up there with this deck for me. Of like reverence. I have deep reverence for these decks. They're unique. They're not like everything else. Okay, so I'm going to be really honest that I had to take a little break from the Witches Tarot. I wasn't super in love with the shadow work deck that the artist put out. So I did take a little break in 2024 from his decks just to kind of like give us some space so that when I came back to the Witches Tarot, I would really be able to appreciate it and not kind of have that yucky taste in my mouth. You know, it's not that I need to say, I want to be very careful with what I say with this. So I really love Chris's artwork. I love his photography. I think he captures dark feminine essence really beautifully in a very, very powerful way. And I'm really happy to support his Witches Tarot full-size edition and the Major Arcana of the Witches Tarot. The shadow deck for me, I just didn't connect with, and it kind of left like a taste in my mouth. Like, you know, when something just doesn't work for you. It's not that the deck is bad across the board, and I know some of you really love that deck, and I'm so happy that you do. And please know you have my full support, and I still support Chris, and I still love his artwork and his decks, but that deck just didn't do it for me. But I will say it's been, and I have prints of his in my home, so I love his work. But I needed to take a little space from it so I could really appreciate the Witches Tarot for the level of love I have for the Witches Tarot, because I really do love both editions. And I've purchased both editions, and I've been gifted by him another copy of the Major Arcana. So I do love his artwork, but I needed to take a little space, and I'm really glad that I gave myself that grace and I didn't try to force myself to work with these decks, because now, you know, finally having been able to claim my own space and move back into our home, I've really enjoyed looking at his imagery again on my walls and then pulling this deck out. I was like, yes, now I remember how much I love this deck. And I really do love the Witches Tarot, particularly the Major Arcana deck. It's absolutely glorious. And if you are a witch, and if you love dark theme artwork, and if your aesthetic is dark, and if your gods are dark, and if your path is in the dark, if you're like me, basically, you will love this deck. It's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. This deck and the full-size Major Arcana, 100% worth the investment in the decks themselves. If you're on the fence, but you're drawn to the artwork, I assure you, you're going to get something out of it. I really do love these two decks. I have deep, mad respect for this deck, and I love, 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 love it. So this is absolutely on my Moody, witchy vibe. So this is definitely dark, sacred feminine. It doesn't have a lot of masculine energy in it. To me, it's really about a witch's dark magic. So if you're looking to connect with that, the Witch's Tarot by Chris Madsen is 100% worth the investment, in my humble opinion. Okay. So these decks aren't numbered. But I gotta say, these three I use all the freaking time, all year, and I am especially using it them right now because they are 100% the vibes. The 100% the vibes. This is the Murder of Crows Tarot by Corrado Roy. This deck is like a breath of fresh air when you open it. It's like, oh, yes. Oh, I love this deck. It's like someone looked into my dark soul and said, I understand how much you love corvid beings, and I'm going to make a deck for you like this. This is this deck. It just is. Murder of Crows is insane. I love it. If you like ravens, crows, if you like birds of prey, if you listen to goth music, if you like a dark aesthetic, if you're witchy and dark in your vibes, even if you just like decks with black and white and gradations of gray in its coloration because it's easier for you to interpret intuitively, then you're gonna like this deck. It's just absolutely beautiful. And this is another one that's like late autumn for sure. When I do my late autumn deck list, I know this deck is gonna be on here. This deck is also, this deck doesn't pull any punches with you, and it's straight up real and honest, and it can be confronting. But it's also the Morgan to me. It's also like, I love you, and I love you enough to tell you the truth. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. It's interesting because I had one of those kind of parenting moments the other day. You know, Vincent's getting older, and I was like, I understood when other people who've been parents have said that to me. Like, I understood at a new level, and this deck is like that. I did actually think of this deck, so I was like, now I get Murder of Crows at another level. Sometimes you have to tell someone something that they don't want to hear, and because you love them, you're not going to bullshit them. You're going to tell them the truth and have an honest conversation about it, and this is that deck. So I would say, if you want to ask a question like, is this relationship going to work out? Or should I move? This deck's going to be honest with you, but it's also not going to blow smoke up your ass. So you need to be prepared for the truth, the unadulterated truth from that deck. That deck is not confounding to me. And also Murder of Crows is very crossroads magic. It's very liminal. So if you're looking for a deck like that, I strongly recommend it. Oh, hi Syrian. Is another one of your decks on my dark and moody autumnal list? Absolutely. This is the Haunted Manor Oracle by Syrian Shadow. This may be, I don't know, guys. Earth and Bone in this deck are tied for my favorite Syrian decks. This deck is so good. Oh, I love this deck so freaking much. It's aesthetically me. Like, if even more than the #1 deck on my list, as far as like, put Racine's aesthetic into a deck, it's this deck. It's like, oh, hi, Dracula meets Gothic romantic literature set in the late 1800s. Hi, hello. Oh, did you want Racine to fall in love with you? Yeah, she already did. That's this deck. This deck is gorgeous. It's glorious. It's also, this deck is another like multi-purpose deck in that it clarifies tarot so beautifully. Oh my God, it clarifies tarot so beautifully, guys. It's a really great clarifier. And so if you are not drawn to like Earth and Bone Oracle, excuse me, not Earth and Bone Oracle, sorry. If you're not drawn to, and now I'm blanking on the name, this is when I wish there was someone else in the room with me to be like, Earthbound, thank you. If you are not drawn to the Earthbound Oracle, but you want a deck that clarifies in the same way you've heard me talk about how that deck clarifies, then give the Haunted Manor Oracle a try. Actually, Haunted Manor Oracle might be out of print as well. I'm sorry, guys. Should have added it to just honorable mention. But honestly, I use this deck all the freaking time, and it's displayed in pride of place in my collection. I really love this deck. So it's a really great clarifier, but also it has the ability to be profoundly soul searching. So it can do both for you. So if you are looking at, and it also has that like beautiful kind of, what is the term for the genre? My art history peeps, please help me. It has that gorgeous, like, it's not Bosch. It's not like a Bosch painting, excuse me. But it has that like 1700s kind of still life portraiture with beautiful tulips, and like, it's got that vibe, right? This card is the perfect depiction of that. Please, I'm blanking on the name for that aspect of art within art history. So please, if you know it, please write it down below for me, because but it's like kind of like Flemish or like the Delft River. Like it's like that, right? Rembrandt, it's got that kind of feel, but it's the still life portraiture from that time. That's this deck. I digress. I want to talk about this deck all day. And also, I want to have like, did I already show it? Oh my God, wait, we have to look at it. Oh, I'm so chatty today. I want to talk about the decks. I want to sit and have a cup of tea and talk with you guys about the decks. Like, this is a deck you want to have some absinthe with, or like a really, really beautiful but strong ass cocktail. And if you don't imbibe liquor, then it would be like, oh, do you know when you have like a mocktail that's really well crafted and it's like really unctuous, like it has at the end of it this kind of earthy taste, almost like, yeah, it's unctuous, it's like, but it's also a little bit like fennel, like if fennel is in this mocktail. That's like this deck. It's got a lot of layers to it, and it's really different, but like you also get a little intoxicated when you drink it, even if there's no alcohol in it, because you're just having this very heady experience with a deck. That's the Haunted Manor Oracle. Okay, I think it's out of print. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry, but this deck, oh my God, this deck. Ugh, I actually have 2 copies of that deck. That's how much I love it. Okay. Oh my God, I've been going on for over 30 minutes. Do you see how many decks? And I didn't even put all of my Dark and Moody decks on this list. I capped it here. Okay, number 1 is my Tarot of Vampires. This is my husband deck. This is my ride or die. This is the deck I can't live without. This deck is not only my best friend, it's my life partner. I draw from it every day. I use it all the time. I craft multiple workshops on this deck. In fact, I'm doing one right now because so many of you have said, Racine, please help us freaking understand Tarot of Vampires. Give us an Autumnal Tarot of Vampires workshop. So that's in the works right now. It's going to be coming to my Etsy shop very soon, and you know I will share about that there. But this deck is really, really beautiful. Not only that, even if you are not drawn to the vampiric, autumnal, blood is the life vibe of this deck, the guidebook should be essential reading for any serious tarot reader. The guidebook is a gift. I say to people all the time, they're like, I'm not really drawn to the artwork, Racine, but should I still invest in the guidebook? Buy it just for the guidebook, because Ian is so knowledgeable around multiple fields of tarot. You've got Rider-Waite-Smith, you have Order of the Golden Dawn, you've got Boda, you've got Hermetic Tarot, you've got the Thoth Tarot system. Ian is familiar with all of it, and he marries it in such a beautiful way. It's like reading a novel, but you walk away and you're so much more well-educated when it comes to tarot and how to pull more than just a basic meaning out of a card. So even if you aren't drawn to the artwork, which I haven't shown you yet, I've trimmed the borders from my deck. By the way, this deck is also my original TOV. This deck is well over a decade old, I think, at this point, right? When did this deck come out? This is my original. It's very old. Your copy, if you are purchased it now, is not going to look this faded. It's not going to be as scuffed up, and it's going to have borders. Also, I edged it in red Sharpie. So, but even if you're not drawn to the artwork in this deck, the guidebook is worth working with. It's worth reading so that you can understand. Like when I talk about tarot has a structure, right? And it's not that we have to follow that structure blindly, but we should understand it enough to appreciate the bones of tarot. That guidebook helps you to understand those bones. So you can go off and read in the way that's authentic for you, but you understand the structure. You understand the wisdom of those who came before you in regards to reading a deck of cards with divinatory and spiritual purpose. So we went really deep here at the end, but I mean, if we're going to be dark and moody, we were going to have to get a bit deep, weren't we? So Tarot of Vampires will always be my ultimate autumnal dark vibes deck. Yeah. That's my list, guys. You hung out with me for 40 minutes if you made it this far. Thank you. I hope if you've been on the fence about what to pull out from your own collection, or if you want to make an investment on a dark and moody autumnal deck, I hope that this list helps you. You guys know, as always, I'm sending you oceans of love, and I will, of course, see you in the next video. Take care.